back in her Christmas shopping. That's awesome. I think I'm done. I'm not wrapped with everything. I actually ran out of wrapping paper this year for the first time, and I think I've used this wrapping paper now probably, no, it's not been 7, but it might have been 3. Literally 3. I must have got it really cheap and they were those huge, massive rolls, and it must have been because I'm out. Now I have to wait on new paper to come. I actually ordered it. Not weird, ordering wrapping paper.
You always get that foncé paper.
Foncé.
Yeah.
I do, but I don't do all the big bows and the.
Foncé.
My girl's just gonna rip it apart, so I just stick a tag on it. All right. Well, let's get to talking today about living fully aware, which I'm not sure I wasn't here. Well, last week was our program, which was that not amazing?
So good.
Oh my goodness, what a program. Oh man, it was so just sat there with tears. That the conversation between Mary and her dad. I think it was potentially the best Christmas program I've ever been to. I agree. It just really got my heart. It was amazing. And those stories. I mean, anytime you hear people's story, it's powerful. So that was last week. The week before that, I was not here, and I was in Louisiana, and you did it all by yourself. Did he do good?
Myself.
I actually watched him in Louisiana. We pulled him up and on the big screen there at Kyle's in-laws and watched church. So we did watch. It was very good.
I just talked from my heart.
Oh, sweet. And then the week before that we had started Living Fully Aware and just never finished it. So we're going to go dive back into living fully aware. And what better time to live fully aware than in the season we're in? It's so easy just to get caught up in the hustle and bustle, and it just happens. And every year we say, we're not going to do that this year. This year we're not going to do that. We're going to go see lights, and we're going to go. We have a list, and then we just get caught up in everything.
I don't want to get done with Christmas and have. I don't want to get done with Christmas and have like post-traumatic stress.
Oh, for real.
But then I don't want to get done with Christmas and have regret. Yeah. Like, doggone it, another Christmas went by and I missed it. Yeah. Like, how could you miss it? I missed it. It blurred right past me, and I don't like that.
No, I think I like having our Christmas program early in the month because I feel like it gives us some time then to. All right, so I'm going to open today about living fully aware with an illustration. I'm just going to give you a little story to listen to and just picture yourself in the story and think. I thought about what I would do, and I know what I would do, and then I thought about you, and I know what you would do, and so
What would I have done?
Well, we'll find out. Well, I'll let you answer that and see if it's what I told him that you would do. Okay.
So you already preloaded it.
I already told him what you would do. I told him what I would do. I told him what you would do. Okay, here's the illustration.
You're right, by the way.
Of course. I didn't doubt that.
Of course. Is there a doubt?
Before I said a word, I said the most important words. You're right, honey.
Happy wife.
That's how you stay married along.
He's a happy man. Okay, if you haven't seen that, you just need to go Google it. Happy man, and you'll get it. It'll come up. All right, so back to our illustration.
Sorry.
Okay. First of all, welcome Kevin Hickey on our panel today. Brother Hickey, we're so glad you're here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, this eye-opening experiment illustrates how distraction keeps us from being fully present in the moment. It was a normal day in Washington, D.C., if there is such a thing. It's a normal day in Washington, D.C., in the subway. Like most days, musicians would they would ply their trade, hoping that passengers would toss a few dollars into a jar or a guitar case. People saw them all the time. There they were. On this day, an average-looking guy in a baseball cap and a white T-shirt positioned himself strategically next to a trash can. He left open his violin case, hoping a few of those dollars would make their way there. Over the next 43 minutes during rush hour, he performed 6 classical pieces as more than 1,000 passengers walked by. This performer, however, wasn't the average street performer. His name, Joshua Bell. His credentials, a child prodigy and famous violinist who days before had played before a sold-out concert in Boston where concert goers had paid up to $100 a ticket. His music,
Bucks.
Chaconne.
Chaconne.
Okay. Regarded as one of the most difficult to play on the violin. His instrument, a $3.5 million Stradivarius. The result?
Hey, my man has some guts taking a $3.5 million Stradivarius to the subway.
The result? A hidden camera revealed that only 7 people stopped to watch his performance for at least 1 minute. What's most striking about this experiment was not that the adults that missed an amazing experience, but every time a child wanted to stop and listen, the parents rushed them along. Sadly, adults too easily lose the wonder and curiosity that children model for us. Holy noticing seems to come more easily for them. Likewise, if Martha had had her way, Mary would have missed the holy moments with Jesus. Holy noticing is a lifestyle that helps us develop a posture that captures more God moments. So what would you have done?
I would have stopped.
I know you would have. And I would have kept walking.
I would have stopped.
I would have.
I would have stopped and been, I would either been like trying to figure out like, this dude isn't just some dude. Or I would have been like, bro.
You would have said, can I
People
see that violin for a minute?
And then he'd said, hey, come back with that. No. But no, I would have stopped because I just do that.
You do. And I'm always busy, and my mind is where the next thing is that I'm doing, and I'm on a mission, and I'm going to get there, and I would have missed it, and you would have stopped.
I actually was sort of, it was weird. I was emotionally touched as you read that, and I thought about it, and I considered it and contemplated, not so much by the story, but because of the fact that many years ago, Lee Stone King came up to me, and he said to me, he said, Ken, he said, your effectiveness in God's kingdom is going to be built around your capacity to have God consciousness. The more that you can become God aware all the time, the more God will be able to use you. He said, otherwise you're just going to run roughshod over life. And so I was reminded of that while you were reading that. I was like, is it just because it's my personality? It's like just in my nature just to stop and be like, hey, wait, let's just take a second. This dude's good, right? I think there's some of that. But I think the other piece of it also is that based on, because I honor Brother Stone King, and if Brother Stone King says you need to blah, 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 and then I'm like, well, I probably need to develop that discipline in my life.
All right, so I'm going to read the next paragraph, and then let's just discuss this a little bit. So it says in Psalms 8, 3 and 4, the psalmist writes, when I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place, what is mankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. This is one of the few places Scripture actually uses the word mindful. This question seems to rise off the psalmist's tongue after he ponders creation, which points him to God's majesty and glory. As he reflects on this, he's amazed that God, the creator, sustainer of the universe, has made mankind the unique object of his care, attention, and goodness. And the New Testament describes God's presence and his undying love for us in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. One of the most often quoted verses that uses the word meditate is Joshua 1:8. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Joshua used this word.
By the way, he was saying meditate on it so that you can be constantly mindful of it.
Right.
He wasn't saying meditate on it so that every single time you can dig out a little nugget.
Right.
A little something that you could preach, he wasn't a little nugget of truth, dissecting it so that you can find out some.
Right.
No, he was saying meditate on it so that it is present with you
Right.
as you go.
And you will be prosperous and successful. Joshua used this word to describe an essential component in holy noticing: obedience. Holy noticing is not merely an end in itself, but includes a double emphasis: stillness before God and virtuous action, being fully present in the moment and behaving rightly in the moments of life.
You got to read that again, because that was too deep for me.
Holy noticing is not merely an end to itself,
Okay.
but it includes a double emphasis.
Time out. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get it as you go. All right. Holy noticing. You're too deep for me. Say it one more time. Holy noticing is not an end to itself. Okay, what does that say to you?
That I'm not done.
Yeah.
That like going through life. I remember the other day I was going through Fresh Time, and there was a guy playing music, and I wanted to stop and listen to him. Then the thought came, and I'm just being honest, the thought came to my mind that I wonder if that dude's really playing that. I wonder if he's just faking it, you know. Wow. And he was playing really good, but to notice, and then why am I noticing? What is God trying to show me?
There it is.
What is he trying to show me through getting my attention of that thing?
That's it. I think
Don't just notice, but there's more to it.
Holy noticing, which is holy meaning it is sanctified for something holy. And it's not noticing the holy things, although that's whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are just. So you could actually talk about holy noticing the holy. It all goes together, but it's not an end in itself. In other words, it's not just simply keep your eyes peeled. Right. It's more than that. Thank you.
So it is also stillness before God.
It's also stillness before God.
And virtuous action, being fully present in the moment and behaving rightly in the moments of life. All right, so let's go to a question. Is it easy or is it difficult to be mindful of others in busy or stressful times?
Oh, it's so easy.
Do you find your patience to be more long-suffering or worn thin during times of difficulty? When you are very self-aware, fear, anger, pain, anxiousness, is it easy to fly off the handle? If y'all have any comments on this, please send them in.
Moly,
Come on,
man.
send me your thoughts, because this is way deeper than I thought.
I'm convicted. I need somebody to talk the
Well, I know.
conviction off
During
me.
a devotion the other week, I was reading in the book of Job. 16 times, Job asks, "Why? Like, why is this happening?" And it's okay. And this might be veering a little bit. It's okay to ask why in the spur of the moment something bad happens in your life, and you want to know, why is this happening? Why is my world falling apart? And what's interesting about in the book of Psalms, when he starts asking why, the psalmist asking why, almost every time at the end of that, he begins trusting God and praising God. And then Job, he was being accusatory. So it's a whole different thing when you're trusting the Lord, to not be accusatory, but to trust him, to lean into him. Yes. Say, yeah, Lord, I'm going to trust you. I don't get it, why this is happening. How many people here today, you had stuff happen in your life, and you're asking God why?
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
You ask God, why is this going on in my family? And the thing about this that strikes to me is that it's easy. And you mentioned this yesterday in prayer. It's easy to go to God in prayer and start saying, I need this done. Let's get a shake on it, Lord. Let's move it. And as soon as you take your eyes off your problem and you start noticing the needs of other people. I might not be able to, I can't fill your need and know exactly what you need in your life. But when you start praying for somebody else, that takes all that stuff that you have preconceived ideas how God needs to take, and you praying for somebody else. You're asking God to touch that person and help that person. Bless them, Lord. And all of a sudden you get into a mindset of you're noticing other people. You're asking God to touch other people. Instead of sitting there, and my old pastor in Illinois used to say, you look like you've been sucking a persimmons. Yeah. Now, I've never tasted a persimmons. Have you?
Yeah, I have too.
How did it go?
I'm not sure.
If they're ripe, they're really, really good. If they're not ripe, you would be sucking one. It would be a bad face.
That is very true. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You said, and same thing, at school, and just vulnerability here, had a really hard couple of weeks. Really hard the past couple of weeks. Just some really difficult situations that arose, and it felt like it was just one on top of the other. And man, I was getting a little, some of those words that we're in here, annoyed.
Yeah.
Anxiousness. I don't really deal with anxiousness a lot, but I was really having a hard time. In fact, I went home one day with a fever, and I'm like, I'm not sick. What is happening right now? But I realized it was just stress that was going on. But I was sitting there one morning. I knew I had to deal with one of the situations, and I was just sitting there thinking through it in the morning, and I was doing my devotion and praying. And I remember just recently he was talking to me about casting your care upon the Lord and what that means. And so I did. That's exactly what I did is I started praying, and I prayed for their situation. I took it away from everything that the emails and the texts that were coming in, and I just said, God, I'm going to cast it, literally cast it. I'm throwing it like a baseball. It's coming right back at you because this is beyond what I'm willing or can deal with right now. And so I did. I cast on the Lord, and it was amazing just to feel his presence come in. And it's like, thank you for giving that to me. And so being aware of now I'm taking it off of what I felt and just how I felt about those situations and turning it and saying, let me be noticing what's going on in their life. Where are they at right now? And I think that's important for those holy noticings to realize and then totally turn my prayer around, totally turn how these situations went when I had to meet with parents or when I had to talk to parents. And so I think that's so important for holy noticing. Take the time and do it.
I like something the pastor said not too long ago. I don't know if it was in a devotion on a Saturday morning or whatever. But when you look at your life and your life gets kind of rough, and the seas of your life are just blowing, and you see the storm. You ever been there? Yeah. You know, the storm is just blowing. And then you just step back for a minute and you be still. Just be still for a minute. And you invite his presence in. And you could feel his presence. And all of a sudden, that storm in your life, you can almost see the waters turn like glass because you actually stop for a minute. And you said, Jesus, calm the storm, Lord. Yeah. And he heard you. What a precious time that is, isn't it?
Right. So good. You know, the interesting thing for me, as I'm listening and I'm taking this in and I'm learning and growing, like listening to you guys talk, because I have a tendency, I'm a noticer. Like, I notice everything, really, honestly. Like, it's really weird sometimes. Like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know why. But sometimes that's dangerous because it makes you sometimes too aware of the circumstance, too aware of the look they gave, or what was that, or why are they saying that, or what, whatever. And I'm not like a hyper analyzer. Like, I'm really not a hyper analyzer. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Well, the thing about it is, for me, is because because I notice. So for me, holy noticing is a whole different kind of spiritual discipline. Yeah. And so as I'm listening to you guys, what I'm realizing is like you said, I start trying to think of others and listen to others. Like you said, I started praying for them. And I think it's important for all of us because I think all of us are innately overly self-aware. You agree with that? I think that's an issue. Like, I think we're overly self-aware. And because we're overly self-aware, what happens is we're aware of how might this affect me. We're aware of how is this affecting me. We're aware of what I'm feeling in it. And I think the more we are this is what I'm learning from listening to you guys talk, okay? So I'm trying to wholly notice and just sit here and listen. But what I'm learning is that I think that, and I've never thought about this before until I listened to you and just sort of paid attention and listened how God has helped you understand through this, is that wholly noticing is a discipline where I take myself out of my consumeristic view of life, because we can consume experiences just as much as we can consume apple pie. And we take ourselves, because everybody in this world today is so consuming. And and I think that wholly noticing is what's God trying to do? Where's Jesus trying to show up in this? Like taking it away from me completely, which is a real self-discipline that I have to have.
So when you take that away and you say, what is Jesus trying to do in this situation? And he doesn't tell you.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And he doesn't tell you what he's up to. Say, come on over here, Lord, in my secret place. Tell me, what are you really up to? No, I'm God.
Right.
And you just trust me.
That's the thing.
And that's the thing that for me, that the Lord's been trying to teach me these several months, is he doesn't have to tell me why. He's the creator. Who am I that I think I could talk to him like that?
Yeah.
I can't. But trusting him. Yeah. If there's anything, I'll just read this if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
I don't mind either.
If I could find it.
Well, while you're looking for that, let me throw this is interesting, because you mentioned Job earlier, and Job said 16 times. Job said why?
16 times.
Right.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that is that it was almost as though Job was saying, God, I could trust you if I knew what you were doing, if I knew why. If you could give me more information, then I probably could endure this. God never told him why, but God revealed himself. And I think the interesting thing that what you're talking about is that my trust isn't built on my understanding. My trust is built on his goodness and sovereignty.
I can't find it, but that's all right.
There's a comment here that says, I think it's important to ask why and then follow it up with, what can I learn from this? What is this situation revealing about me? Where do I need to grow? Asking God for guidance. It's going deeper than the surface issue we are facing. That's a good comment.
Somebody commented that.
Mm-hmm. I have here, it says, think with me about Jesus on the cross. He was mindful of others. Wow. He didn't just notice them. He was engaged. He spoke the word of consolation to the thief on the cross. He spoke the word of comfort to his mother Mary and John while on the cross. He spoke the word of forgiveness over the people who crucified him. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And it says Jesus was not self-aware as much as he was missionally aware. He was paying attention to the work of God even as he entered into the last moments of his life.
I was just talking this morning with my wife about that very thing. Wow. In our devotion, and it's interesting. You put yourself in the place of Jesus right. for a minute,
right?
And you're on the cross,
right?
And they're doing it to you. Oh, just let me off this cross for a minute,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, I'll show you a thing or two, right? And would I be asking the Lord, forgive these folks? Oh man, I was thinking to myself, he's God. Nobody else could have done that.
He said, the second temptation of Jesus in the wilderness was, cast yourself down off the temple,
right.
Because doesn't the word say he will give his angels charge concerning you lest you dash your foot against the stone? What was interesting was he was getting ready to dash his foot off the head of the serpent. And God never promised him that the angels would save him from the injury to his heel. He would be bruised. And what's interesting about that is that as we think about that, as we contemplate that, in the context of mindfulness, they offered him on the sponge. Do you remember? The vinegar and gall, which is considered to be that it was a tonic. Yes, it was an anesthetic. It was a numbing tonic that they would give because it would help them to basically not go insane with pain. And Jesus refused it. And theologians for a long time, theologians have contemplated, why did Jesus refuse that? And the best answers I've ever read by theologians that contemplate these things is that Jesus was purposely maintaining his consciousness and awareness. That he, for us, was fully aware. He was fully aware of his pain. He was fully aware. And man, and think of us, how desperately and deeply we try to numb it as humans.
And how, I mean, the accusations that were being thrown at him, and the hurt, not only physically, but just emotionally and just against his character. What do we do? What's the first thing we do when those things happen to us? Yeah. We're going to lash back and we're going to try to defend ourselves, and we're going to, and instead he was completely for them. He did the exact opposite. Yeah.
So I found this, and I think it's worth reading just for a moment. In devotion last night, it says, our own path through life is dark and devious and beset with difficulties and dangers. How full of consolation is the doctrine that infinite wisdom directs every event, brings order out of confusion and light out of darkness, and to those who love God, causes all things, whatever be their present aspect and apparent tendency, to work together for good. No matter what happens in our life, it may look like bad things are coming. Things are going down. Why is this happening? But God didn't tell us why. He just said, just trust me through this. It's going to be okay. Just trust me through that. And one day we'll be in glory. And none of this stuff that we went through will matter. And we'll never ask him another why. We'll just say, hallelujah to the Lamb.
You know, it's interesting, the Bible talks about that he is our great and precious reward. Yes, he is our consolation. And the thing about it is we try to find meaning in life, and what we don't realize is that original sin, to use a theological term, right, that's loaded with like original sin. The fall has sucked meaning out of human existence outside of God doing that. What you just read was that life is a journey that is dark and dubious.
Twists and turns, for sure.
That sometimes don't make sense. And the reality is that the reason is because a lot of sense has been removed, because God's original designed purpose has been thwarted by the chaos of corruption. Right. There are things that we will go through that there is no meaning. But God, I can speak in tongues right now. Bless him, Lord. Bless him, Lord. God He is the one who takes the meaninglessness. That's why we have to trust him. There isn't meaning in the world outside of him. Right? It's like, this doesn't make sense. It's meaningless. It doesn't. God, why? And we want to know. And here's the reality. Because you're living in a world that has in many ways become void of God's sovereign original intention. And so what do? We trust that. What was the phrase where God is, what is he doing? We trust that God is.
It says God brings order out of confusion.
Yeah.
He brings light out of darkness.
There it is.
And to those who love God, he causes all things. That's what the thing that really grabbed me yesterday was, he causes all things to work together for the good. We don't have to understand, and question God and ask him, why are you doing this? What's the good in this?
Make sense out of this.
And that's the thing that when I start doing that, that's when it starts falling into the sinful nature of being accusatory to God. And don't you know what's happening in my life? He knows.
100%,
he knows what's happening.
100%.
But just like that song says, trust and obey. There's no other way to be happy in Jesus. Just to trust him and obey.
Comment came in that said that you had texted somebody yesterday about a situation, and you shared that you started to pray, and God said, if I remember right, that God had already told you, I'm already working on it. I'm already working it out. He said, we as humans are so impatient about God's plan.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. There was a situation yesterday where it was like somebody had texted and said, hey, this situation, blah, blah, blah. And basically the Lord just flat out spoke and said to me, I better be careful because I'm preaching about this today. Right. About God saying, you don't even know what I'm doing yet. You haven't even asked me about what I'm doing yet. How in the world are you going to pray?
You're going to pray what you think.
Yes.
You're going to pray what
I'm going to present to God my solution and say, now God, doesn't this sound like a good solution to you? And
that's our context if we don't ask what his will is.
Bro, and what you just said, Doc, that was, I'm telling you, Brother Hickey, that what you just said about that when we start demanding of God to give us the reasons, when we start demanding of God to give us meaning, it is dangerous, because what happens is that we enter into the place of judge because we say, God, give me the information and I will sit next to you, and together we will judge these events together.
Wow, it's dangerous, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
And we need to come to the conclusion and the realization of,
he doesn't need our input.
right, who has known the mind of God that he might instruct him?
That's right.
If I need God to give me the information that gives meaning and purpose and whatever, Lord, tell me why, for what?
Why does he have to answer to you for it?
Right. Well, and here's the deal. If I need to ask God for why, then how can I feel like eventually this will give me the ability to sit together with him and say, okay, now we can judge this thing together? Are you kidding me? I don't know. I'm so limited that I've got to ask God, and then I'm going to turn around and take the information and say, okay, now God, based on this information, this is what I think you ought to do. And I'm telling you, that's the way we live, and that's the way we pray. And iniquity is when we impose our self-will on a sovereign God. That is the definition.
That's it. There you go. Perfect.
Comment. Self-awareness could become self-centeredness.
Oh.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah, and unfortunately it's a cycle. Whoever said that, great statement. And I would even take it the next step and say that self-awareness could produce self-centeredness, and self-centeredness produces self-awareness, and it's a vicious cycle.
Another comment, why do we avoid being conscious and completely aware? Why do we avoid being conscious and completely aware? It seems we have become very good at avoidance and experiencing pain and discomfort. Is there growth in the suffering? Romans 5:3-5 says, yes, absolutely. Another comment.
These are good comments.
These are very good comments. From a mission standpoint, the very thing we're asking God why about, whether it's suffering from a situation or et cetera, could be the very thing that becomes a testimony in the future for someone else who can't find that light in the darkness of that exact same situation.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Dude,
I
this
can
is a
remember-
deep church.
I can remember sitting there and the doctor telling me I had cancer. Yes. And I can remember being so upset. And mostly upset, looking back over my life and said, what have I been doing? You know, and then beating myself up.
You mean like wasted time, wasted years?
Yeah. And beating myself up. God was just trying to bring me closer to him. I remember a minister coming up to me one time saying, man, I'm so sorry you had cancer. And I could have answered him what I answered him, a month or two before that. But I told the man, I'm thankful for cancer. And he goes, what? Why? And it was because, now I didn't know why, but God was just, when you're brought to a point in whatever situation you're in and you have nothing else to fall back on, that's when you have faith. That's when you have trust. Because you can't go to the doctor and say, heal me. He can't do it. And you can't go to other people and say, help me. They could pray. But you have to fully place everything in God's hand and say, whatever's going to happen to me, I'm trusting you. And I told this minister, I said, the thing that this did for me, it could either let the trials of life and the stuff that happens to everybody, you could cause yourself to be pushed away from God and say, well, you ain't gonna do things my way? Well, booyah on you, Lord.
Why would I serve a God like you?
Yeah, like candy canes and jelly beans. That's crazy.
Here's another comment. Well, it says we see things in linear time. So often when such things as the death of a loved one or serious hurts, like a vicious accident or crime takes place, it's hard to see outside of it. When people say, just trust God, lean on God, it's hard when you're mad at God.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Those words seem so shallow.
So shallow.
Can you hit pause right here?
Yeah.
I actually had one of the classes that I had when I was at UGST was a class that I was like, I was dreading. I'm like, oh gee, what kind of dark and what's the word, like depressing or what this class is going to be. The title of the class was Death, Dying, and Bereavement. I'm like, holy moly, man. It was so good. It was so good because it brought me face to face with things I don't want to think about. Exactly. And it caused me even like so there was so the professor was a PhD psychologist in crisis family counseling, and she said sometimes we quote scriptures to people and it sounds so shallow because it's sounding like it's almost like we're just either we're trying to tell them something we don't know what else to say, or we're saying like for example, all things work out for the good. And it's like, okay, well, this doesn't feel good. And that was where she said what you just said right there, the ministry of presence. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. The ministry of presence, by the way, is just simply saying, I actually don't have an answer for you. I don't have an answer for you. Brother Hickey, I don't have an answer for you. I don't know either. You and Sister Hickey have gone through a lot of with her health stuff, and then she falls, and then the neck surgery, and whatever. And I'm like, I don't have an answer for you, but I'm going to tell you this much. Yeah. I'm here for you.
There you go.
And
that's so important. Like I wasn't trying to be like when you tell somebody you got to trust God. Right. It's when you've been through things. So when you're older and you've been through a lot of stuff, to me, trusting God is so important, but it's not meant to be like, yeah, just trust God. I don't mean it like that. Right. It's just like you had mentioned the other day, Brother Dillingham. You had mentioned about casting the cares upon the Lord. We were praying for somebody's situation in the church. I didn't know all about it. Brother Dillingham knows about it, but to take those waters and like we spoke earlier about calming those waters, yes. and when I can really trust God, and I like what you said, just knowing somebody's here for you, and I encourage you to do this. When you're in prayer and you feel somebody's name come up on you, there's nothing wrong with getting on your phone. You don't have to know anything about them. Text them and say, God's best to you. I'm thinking about you today. God's best to you. And to people to know that you're thinking about them. That somebody out there, because it's easy when in the midst of your situation to feel bad and to let the enemy grab hold of your mind and start believing a lie, and to be deceived and then getting depressed or whatever. But just to know that somebody's out there. Like Brother Diffendahl, you mentioned it to me yesterday. We won't go into detail, but you had mentioned to me yesterday that the Lord had woke him up and had him praying for this individual, and this individual thought they were all alone. Only to find out that God had prompted Brother Diffendahl to pray for that person during that time. It's so important as a body of Christ. Yeah, we know that Jesus loves us, but to reach out to each other and let them know, hey, I love you. I don't know your situation. I don't need to know your situation, but I'm praying for you.
Yeah, it's one thing to think about it, but it's another thing to take action and do something.
What was the rest of that comment? Was it?
Yeah.
I know it's 10:30.
Okay, so it's hard when we're mad at God because he didn't fix it the way we wanted him to fix it. It takes true, unfiltered trust. Pistuo. Somebody's been listening. Which we often don't know that we are dealing with until we have to deal with it. We don't realize that we don't believe, we're struggling. Sometimes we realize in those situations we aren't as trusting as we thought. That's why it's so important to be mindful when we're talking to others if we have not been through their situation. Sometimes prayer for others, or like you said, just being there is so important as they go through things is the best way.
Yeah. Man, help today. So in the 11 o'clock service, just know that there's what the message is going to be about the 1/10 of the iceberg. Yeah. And all this is underneath the iceberg. And that the point that you just made there, or that person, was that sometimes you will fall.
All of us
fall onto Jesus. That's when you say trust, it doesn't just mean like, resolutely just throw your shoulders back and stick your chin out and trust God. No. Sometimes trusting God is saying, I hear it like the logger in the distance. Timber. I can hear it. Yeah. It's going down. Fall on Jesus. And one last little piece, and I want you to close it up. But it's like a surgeon. You go ahead and close it up. But one amazing thing one thing that has helped me so much is to move out and away from a Calvinistic view of the world. which is there's the Calvinistic view of the world is that everything has meaning, we just don't know it yet. And there's a reason for everything. And we say that. There's a reason for everything. Sometimes we just don't know, but there's a reason for everything. Here's the deal. It will really, really bless you and benefit you if you'll move away from that way of thinking, because that is not true. There isn't a reason for everything. Not everything happens for a reason. I want you to sit on that for a minute. When you start thinking, well, everything happens for a reason. No. Some things happen because we live in a broken, meaningless world. We live in a world void of God's original intention and plan. But God is working in the midst of meaninglessness to take those situations and for his glory make meaning, make glory out of things that are meaningless. Don't use bad theology to assuage yourself, to console yourself. Don't use bad theology to console yourself. Well, everything happens for a reason. We just don't understand. Maybe one day we'll know. Don't use bad theology to console yourself. Allow yourself to sit in a place where you say, sometimes things happen in this sin-corrupted world that is devoid of meaning and purpose. But God is working in and with and through his people, that through those situations, God's taking it and giving it meaning and redefining it and making it hope and bringing himself glory. That's it. Yeah. That helped me.
That's good. That's good. I'll close it with this. A mindful life, we're talking about living fully aware. A mindful life helps us stop and pay attention to both God's word and his works as we see it in people, in creation, and in our bodies. It counters our busy lives filled with faster internet speeds, speed reading, and skimming relationships. Much like a prism reveals the wide spectrum of color and light, holy noticing reveals truth to our hearts and opens us to the mind of God and to his world and presence in the world. It's a spiritual discipline. It's rooted in both God's word and his works. So this season, I know it's busy, but take the time and be spiritually mindful. Live fully aware. Live missional. Jesus on the cross lived missional. We can live missional in our lives today. Live missional. I love all of you, and you have time still to go grab some coffee and a donut and speak at 10:45. Pick up your children. They've had a Christmas party today, so they're going to be wired, I'm just telling you. So good luck keeping them calm in church. All right, we love you guys.